What we have in front of us here is what I call a coffee shop philosopher. They hang out in coffee shops and they're itching to tell people what they know. And of course, their knowledge is often rather thin and mistaken. Such is the case here. This man is now going to tell us how Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty of murder because of slavery. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dredd to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dredd Show.
All right, just as a warning, you're going to be shaking your head a lot during the playing of this video. I'm telling you, this is way out there, but we'll give it our best shot.
Oh shit. That white supremacist just got away with murder and, everyone saw it happen.
Yeah, we all saw it happen, and we actually observed it and analyzed it, and that's the difference. It's very clear that Kyle Rittenhouse is being chased, okay? Usually, but not always, when a person is being chased, the person chasing him is probably the primary aggressor. And I would also point out that all 12 members of the jury saw the videos and all unanimously agreed it was self-defense.
You know, Kelly, the story of how we got...
Kelly's smart. And by the way, man, put on a clean t-shirt. Jeez. Does he look like somebody who has not worked in a long time?
Well, I guess I'll just make a video about it. Hey folks, it's Tristan here. Last month...
He and him. Oh, we got to make sure that we get the pronouns straightened out. I guess we could not tell that he was a man.
We saw something messed up. A white supremacist named Kyle Rittenhouse murdered 2 people.
Okay, so we start off with a white supremacist. You have to back that up with evidence. You have not done so, and you're not going to be able to do so. The evidence for him being a white supremacist simply isn't there. And murder, well, you're using what we would call a false premise. You're assuming he's a murderer to create a video about how he murdered. Well, first of all, you have to establish that he murdered people. Guess what? It's going to be difficult because a jury heard all the evidence and declared him innocent. Okay, not guilty. But whatever the case, calling him a murderer is a bit problematic.
He openly fantasized about committing vigilante justice.
Okay, he didn't write these things. None of what you see here was written by Kyle Rittenhouse. This is, in my opinion, complete slander. And if this dude had any money, which he doesn't, if he had any money, this is something that Kyle Rittenhouse could sue for. Claiming there's a direct insinuation by the way he phrased his words over the top of this that Kyle Rittenhouse actually wrote these comments, but he did not. And where do they come from? Well, they come from a Facebook post in response to Kenosha Guard Commandant Kevin Mathewson's request for people to show up in Kenosha to protect private property. Had nothing to do with Kyle Rittenhouse. There's no evidence that Kyle ever even saw these. And in fact, Facebook even investigated that very question and found nothing. There's no connection whatsoever between Kyle Rittenhouse and these posts.
He crossed state lines with an assault rifle.
Well, okay, here we go. There should be some sort of bullshit meter just goes off, and when somebody says this, you should be able to just simply delete everything that this person stated in the video. We don't have that kind of button. But you all know that Kyle did not take the assault rifle, not even an assault rifle, but whatever. He did not take the rifle across state lines. We have known that for over a year now. What's this man's excuse? Even in the trial, it came out that Kyle did not carry the rifle across state lines. Was he paying attention? No. Again, you got to understand, this is a coffee shop philosopher. They can't be bothered with real evidence. That takes too much work. Instead, they dream up theories amongst their friends and then hang out in coffee shops to tell everybody about them. He's a pseudo-intellectual, in other words.
and used it to end 2 lives in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Right. I'm gonna have to make a bit of a tweak to my content in this video. You see, Bob here, say hi, Bob. Bob here has always been in the room while I shoot my videos, but after this decision, he's now got legal protection to shoot people saying stuff he doesn't like.
Okay, but that has nothing to do with Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, I understand his little cutesy strategy here, but Kyle didn't shoot people because they said things he didn't like.
So, I'll need to be a bit more careful with how I word things.
By the way, the man is also a Marxist. I don't think he realizes that if there was ever a body politic out there that shot people for saying the wrong things, it was the communists, the NKVD. And in fact, you didn't even have to say the wrong thing. All Stalin had to do was think that you might say the wrong thing, and they took you down in the cellar and shot you. True story. The executioner for Stalin personally killed more people in history than any other man. We're talking 30,000 people. And so don't give us this crap about shooting people for saying the wrong thing and being a Marxist. That's hypocritical.
So, today, let's talk about the factors which led to Kyle Rittenhouse getting away with unaliving 2 people. But first, let's do something my colleague here couldn't possibly oppose: capitalism. Once again, I'd like to thank the sponsors for this video who bought out the whole year Skillshare.
Oh, I see. So Mr. Marxist here is going to push products? Oh man, this is sad.
The latest Skillshare course that I took is on making engaging videos with a teleprompter, something I'm using right this moment. And it's been very useful for at least learning how to talk to a teleprompter. I've always been nervous about using one and kind of gone back and forth between bullet points and scripts because I don't know how to sound like a person while I'm doing that. And thanks to this course, I think I'm getting better. Definitely need training, but at least it has helped quite a bit. I've also got a special treat. The next 1,000 people who use this link will get a free trial of Skillshare's premium service. Try before you buy. You know? I like to deliver some value to my viewers.
Why don't you take courses in maybe calculus or business analytics or English, things that could make you productive.
Thanks to Skillshare for making this such a good year for me. The story of Rittenhouse getting away with whoopsie-doodling 2 protesters began in 1676.
Oh, crap. Here we go. Here we go. Slavery, I guess.
Hear me out. Bay, Virginia needed a source of unpaid work, so they'd find people who would work for free if someone paid their passage over. They even got some land after they paid off all their debts.
Oh, man. The dude took a course at the junior college level, probably, on early American history, and now he's going to lay it all out for us. Oh, my God. This is terrible. This has what to do with Kyle Rittenhouse?
This was a sweet deal for plantation owners, as many workers died before their contract ended. As survival rates increased, more indentured servants, as they called them, demanded land. But even in colonial times, the land already belonged to a small elite of plantation owners. The frustration of these unlanded workers bubbled up into a rebellion. They demanded the colony take more indigenous land to give them their promised acres. They lost, but the resolution of Bacon's Rebellion did cause some reforms. It's called Bacon's Rebellion after its leader Nathaniel Bacon, who died before it ended. But, whatever. There are 2 reforms I want to talk about. First, they began to rely less on these indentured servants and to rely more on I can't say slaves? Okay, fine. Virginians relied more on unfree African labor. The second reform were laws about the people's rights.
Wow, you mean there were slaves in this country? Oh, man, and to say that we don't learn anything from this guy.
Based on their skin color. Before this, some black people bought their freedom, or their master emancipated them in their will. This practice dwindled, and in legal code, to be black was to be a slave. They were also forbidden from owning guns, to make sure they couldn't pull their own Bacon's Rebellion.
Oh, for crying out loud, all you had to do was jump to this part and say, let's all go back to slavery. And there was a law that didn't allow slaves to own guns. You could have started with that, but no, you're a coffee shop philosopher. You just got to run your mouth. We get it.
This regime created a caste system for Virginians. Black people were slaves, in every way put at the bottom of the social hierarchy. White people, who once and still did the exact same work and were also stuck in extreme forms of forced labor, were free. They could own land. Even if poor, they could say that they weren't
Whatever, man. Come on. We get it. There were slaves in this country. Yeah, okay.
This regime lasted over 2 centuries. The American, but especially Southern economy, grew dependent on unfree labor. Black people lived in horrific conditions, hard to even comprehend.
Yeah, gee, no shit. No, hell no. I thought that they lived in mansions. Give me a break.
Let alone describe. Meanwhile, the plantation owners held their fortunes in keeping these people unfree.
I bet the plantation owners lived in nice houses too. That'll be the next big shocking revelation.
When they sensed the forces of history turn against them, they had a massive civil war rather than give up.
Oh, hell no. I didn't know we had a civil war. Oh, man. I'm so glad I listened to this asshole.
And states' rights or something. The South wound up losing the war.
Hey, you learn something new every day.
But the half measures in Reconstruction caused many freemen to live close to where they lived as slaves. Frequently, they lived in similar conditions to before the war. New Jim Crow laws gave them few rights. The caste system became official through segregation in every corner of Southern society. The North did plenty of its own segregation too.
The North? This is Los Angeles. Okay.
They just used less obvious ways like redlining to feel righteous. These laws would let the slavery-era dream stay alive. American society kept black people at the bottom of a clear hierarchy. Then came the short civil rights movement.
Oh my God, come on.
50s and 60s saw an organized movement for black rights like no other. Through bloody struggle, they did manage to win legal equality and to end all of those Jim Crow laws. This was a great challenge to many white people who
this is racist. I'm sorry.
Who saw these gains as a challenge to the order. You can see this anxiety in the fierce opposition to people fighting for what's essentially basic human dignity. Luckily, for white folks, they sat on centuries of intergenerational wealth. Wealth that they had successfully barred black people out of. Furthermore, a loophole in the constitutional amendment banning the no-no word, people could still hold someone in unfree labor if they were prisoners. So, they imprisoned black people.
And I guess Kyle Rittenhouse was a jailer? Or was he one of those that was imprisoned because they thought he was black? I have no idea.
At a drastic rate. They took their right to vote away if they infringed or were perceived to have infringed the law. Most have to do with how you choose to shut off your brain for a few hours. With a large number of black people in prison, they'd get tons of free labor. They could also deprive a disproportionate number of black people their civil rights. Oh, and the ability to obtain gainful employment. That's more or less how it is today. So what does that have to do with this guy?
Oh, I have no idea. And I have a feeling we're still not going to know when he gets done.
The caste system needed enforcement. People who did that committed what they call vigilante justice. By vigilante justice, they mean terrorism.
Yeah, but Kyle is not a terrorist by any definition. I mean, this is outright slander. Kyle has nothing in common with these guys.
During the time of the S word, watchmen and bounty hunters hunted people trying to run away to freedom in Canada or the North. They professionalized with anti-strike enforcers to become the modern police force.
Well, wait a minute. The police force is what everybody was claiming that Kyle Rittenhouse had no business doing. In fact, they're claiming that Kyle Rittenhouse's big mistake was not allowing the police to do the protection of the property. In other words, the police are the good guys, and Kyle Rittenhouse was trying to be one, and he's not a police officer. He doesn't have the training and the skills for doing police work. He should have let the police do the work. But now the police are the propagators of this racist system.
After the Civil War, these patrols turned into creepy groups like the Ku Klux Klan. They terrorized, brutalized, and murdered tons of black people to keep them in line. If a black person tried to vote, protest their second-class status, or even get too successful, there'd be white mobs there to shove them down. Sometimes they'd take a person, say they committed a crime, and execute them. The crime was so public, they made postcards. And they'd get away with it. In fact, many Klansmen who did this kind of thing were the cops, the people you'd think would be the ones that stopped them.
The people that you'd say that Kyle should have let guard the property. Okay, that makes no sense at all.
America has a long tradition of looking the other way at murder in the name of maintaining the hierarchy. And
oh, wait a minute. That dude here, let's go back. He was found not guilty. There was insufficient evidence to convict him. I have often challenged people, tell me what evidence indicates that this guy was guilty of murder, and they have never been able to offer it.
Long tradition of looking the other way at murder in the name of maintaining the hierarchy. And now we're starting to get why those invested in keeping black people at the bottom see Rittenhouse as a hero.
Well, how do you say that this person is invested in keeping black people at the bottom? You don't know anything about him. Have you ever interviewed him? Have you ever asked him his thoughts?
Saying Kyle Rittenhouse got away with killing two people because of an ingrained idea that violence is okay, but only if it keeps black people in line, wouldn't be the whole picture. Related, but
It's not the picture at all. It's not true.
But nonetheless distinct from that is the role of the gun. The gun's been there from day one.
By the way, before he goes any further, he's now diving into Carol Anderson's theories about the Second Amendment and police, okay? This is a black woman who got her PhD at Ohio State, and she's been going around making the rounds, telling everybody that the reason why we have this Second Amendment is because of slavery. We needed guns to put down slave rebellions, and the reason why we have a police force is because of the early slave patrols. Both are complete nonsense. She bases her Second Amendment argument on the fact that George Mason and Patrick Henry wrote a letter to James Madison urging him to pass the Second Amendment onto the Bill of Rights because they were concerned about slave rebellions. Okay, but there's no indication, no evidence whatsoever that James Madison ever cared about what they wrote. James Madison had been working on the Second Amendment already for quite a long time. If Patrick Henry or George Mason had never wrote their letters, we would still have a Second Amendment. And the whole thing about the police force is ridiculous. Police forces are natural evolutions of any town. It's only going to be a matter of time before the people collect their money together in the form of taxes to pay people to go out and enforce laws. Modern policing has nothing to do with the slave patrols. Yes, early slave patrols could be considered a form of policing, but that doesn't make all police forces a remnant of slave patrols. The logical fallacies there are enormous, and these people buy into them. He is a coffee shop philosopher. He has no critical thinking skills whatsoever. Neither does Carol Anderson.
It was there to suppress the unfree migrant workers. It was also there to make a continent of indigenous people empty for white settlers.
The gun was used for a lot of things.
Gun is power. This is an excellent time to remind you that one of those post-Bacon's Rebellion laws was a ban on black gun ownership. Today, the wildest double standard in American gun talk is the difference between how Americans talk about white gun owners.
From my cold, dead hands.
That's Charlton Heston, and he's not saying anything about white gun owners. Nothing.
And black gun owners.
Philando Castile's girlfriend says he told the officer he had a licensed weapon and was reaching for his ID when he was shot and killed.
Rittenhouse.
Okay, yes, Philando Castile was a black gun owner. He was also stoned. Can't carry a gun if you are impaired. All right? He disobeyed police commands. We can hear it on the video. The officer telling him at least 3 times and even 4 times not to reach for the gun. He ignored them because he was stoned. The fact that he was reaching for his wallet is not something that the officer could have known. It's really obvious. When the officer tells you, don't reach for it, you stop. And you might ask the officer, hey, well, what do you want me to do? I'm trying to get my wallet here, okay? And then the officer can maybe say, okay, reach for it slowly or whatever. Philando Castile disobeyed the police commands. The cop thought he was going for his gun. It was a tragic mistake, and it would have been avoided if Philando Castile had quit using so much damn marijuana. It makes you stupid, but it has nothing to do with black gun rights.
Rittenhouse's lawyers argued self-defense for why he had to shoot 2 people. Many American states have permissive laws about killing people in self-defense.
Right, and which states have the most unpermissible? Southern states, believe it or not. North Carolina has one of the worst self-defense laws in the country. That was a slave state.
But white people always get a much more sympathetic ear.
In 2012, Marissa Alexander was convicted of an assault charge from a 2010 incident in which she fired a warning shot with a reportedly licensed gun at her abusive husband.
Okay, I did a video on Marissa Alexander. I'm sorry, I got to step in here for this moron, all right? First of all, firing a warning shot is illegal in Florida. If she had claimed that she was trying to shoot her ex-husband, then she might have been treated a little bit differently, because then that would have been a valid self-defense claim. She tried to claim self-defense, but at the same time tried to claim she was only shooting a warning shot. This is why you always talk to a lawyer before you shoot your mouth off to the cops. Second of all, she brought the gun to her ex's home, and in so doing was violating a restraining order that he had put against her. She was crazy, and he knew it. So he put out a restraining order. She violated it, took a shot at him, and yeah, she served some time. And regardless of how you feel, whether she was treated fairly by the legal system, this had nothing to do with black gun rights.
People bought the line that Rittenhouse went to Kenosha with an assault rifle to give medical aid.
Well, okay, let's take a look at the evidence. He said he did. Okay. He's carrying a medical kit. That's something to think about. Witnesses said that he did administer medical aid to protesters, and we have him on video doing it. Now, you add that all up, you get the feeling that he went there to deliver medical aid. But not to this clown. Nope.
I don't know. Maybe he's an animane or something.
And never mind the fact that Gage Grosskreutz was also carrying a gun and was delivering medical aid. And nobody is denying the fact that Gage was there helping people medically. We have that also on video. But according to his argument, he couldn't be, because he was armed. It's a ridiculous argument. It's one of my dumb arguments that I made. The very fact that an EMT carried a weapon is no big deal. And in fact, our military medics do carry weapons. It's called protecting yourself while you're trying to help others. I mean, again, coffee shop philosopher, they're not particularly deep thinkers.
I require healing. I have you covered.
And the sting fires helpful bullets.
But why do people get this way? Why is an act of violent terrorism at a Black Lives Matter BLM protest getting support from unexpected people? To answer that, we're going to need to delve into the world of social psychology.
Oh God, social psychology. He took a course in it. You can tell. And now he knows everything.
Psychologists believe that we justify our world to feel less uncomfortable about their place in it. They call this system justification theory. People have psychological needs that defending the status quo sates. This is even if that system hurts others. Even if it hurts yourself. Their well-being is so tied to the status quo, they'll defend it relentlessly. Ever wonder why white people get so weirdly defensive when calling out racism?
Well, I don't know. Black people get kind of defensive too. And to the point where they even now say, well, you can't be racist if you're black. That's how defensive they got.
Acknowledging the existence of a racial caste system undermines their sense of self-worth.
Well, if the person's not really racist, then I would expect them to get a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah.
It threatens their privileges, so defending it as just becomes essential. Furthermore, they must justify oppression as somehow making sense. Talk to people or look at the news. They're reaching for any explanation for Rittenhouse getting away with unaliving people that doesn't involve racism.
How about the Wisconsin statutes? Did you bother to read them? There's no justification that we need for him to get away with murdering people. We have the Wisconsin statutes. I've read them over and over again on my show. I've gone deep dives into every line of the self-defense statutes in Wisconsin. They line up exactly with what happened with Kyle. It was self-defense, asshole. And if you had bothered to do some research, you would know it too. You didn't watch the trial. You haven't read the statutes. You don't know a damn thing. And guess what? That's just like all the coffee shop philosophers I know. Again, they take a general ed class in college and all of a sudden they become experts. But one thing about it is they don't have the oomph to actually do the research. It takes a lot of work. I know. You don't know how many thousands of hours I have invested into my videos. And all of that helps me understand to a much greater extent what took place in Kenosha that night and why. He can't be bothered with that. He didn't even watch the trial. You can bank on it.
Well, now you know why. But that's not quite far enough. This is about where your average liberal analysis might stop. But, I ain't no liberal.
Are you a conservative? Oh, wow, that would be interesting.
It explains why we defend the status quo in a sort of individualistic kind of way. But how about the why of said status quo in the first place? You will learn the what is racism, but often not the why is racism. To do that, we're going to need to look into our theory books. We're going to need this guy, Carl German Santa. Santa studied the effect that economic forces can have on history.
Okay, I'm not going to go through this. I hate fucking communists. I'm not going to listen to this shit. Okay, I skipped over it. Hey man, I've heard this crap enough. And again, these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. To understand Marxist theory, you have to engage in ample coursework. He hasn't done that kind of work. Everything that he has is all thinly based on what he's read online and argued with his friends, who themselves are equally ignorant. And finally, I would like to make a mention that every time they have implemented Marxism in any country, people get shot. Millions of people get shot. And there are reasons why that is.
What does this all have to do with the American racial caste system? Looking at America through a Santaist lens, you'll notice that you have a group of people who own all the things. You also have a group who sell chunks of their life to get the stuff they need to survive. These owners want as much money for themselves as possible. So paying these workers as little as they can get away with is the name of the game. There are two ways a racial caste system benefits these guys in the name of that sweet, sweet cashish. The first way is that a lower caste allows bosses to exploit marginalized people even more, whether through literal slavery or wages so low they'd never escape poverty.
Okay, look, Kyle Rittenhouse is poor. His mother had a hard time keeping jobs. They were evicted from their homes many times because they couldn't make rent. He grew up in abject poverty. So what the hell is he talking about?
American superstructure then blames these people for their low wages. They cite non-existent laziness or cultural problems or any other racist BS. At the end of the day, that maintains...
By the way, the book, The Bell Curve, he has not read it, I guarantee you.
a hierarchy. Marginalized people make less, and their bosses skim more off the top. The second reason is that race has kept white workers and everyone else separated. Workers as a group are then unable to work together to improve their situation. See, there's one way working people can use the fact that the whole economy rests on their work. We can simply not work.
So we'll march day and night by the big cooling tower. They have the plant, but we have the power.
That's what a strike is.
Okay, enough. I can't deal anymore with this. At no point does he actually go into the event itself and describe why it happened. He's got something going on here with the unions and strikes and stuff. Oh my God, man. Can you imagine sitting down in a Starbucks trying to enjoy your coffee? Although I don't know how you do that because it tastes like 10W30 motor oil. But whatever the case, you're sitting down, you're trying to enjoy your coffee, and this jackass shows up and he pulls up a chair and he just shoots his mouth off. He doesn't know a damn thing. Just another ignoramus who goes online, reads a bunch of web pages, and thinks he knows everything there is to know about everything. And judging by the looks of it, he's all pissed off about the upper rich elite because he can't get a job. He doesn't look like he's worked a day in his life. And of course, he's going to have to find somebody to blame for that. Well, guess what? You only have yourself to blame. Like my video, subscribe to my channel, and stay the hell away from people like this. They're cancers.